Okay, so what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the stream. Today, we're going to be diving into creating some more sounds in Reaktor. If you don't know what Reaktor is, it's sound design and synthesis creation machine or software that we use to create modular synths. So when you dive right in, we're going to open up a new session, a new ensemble. When you open up Reaktor, it's going to look something like this. Once it's opened up, you're going to see three different options. One is the play option, one is the patch option, and one is the build option. So today we're going to be recreating the Elektron Analog 4, a bass sound within the Elektron Analog 4. And I'm going to guide you in today's live stream on how to do that. I'm really excited to show you how to recreate the Elektron 4's iconic analog bass sound using Reaktor blocks. So what you can expect in this episode is that we're going to build a bass patch from scratch, and we're going to walk through the oscillators, filters, envelopes, and effects that are used and end with a quick demo of the bass line. So without further ado, let's dive right in. When we dive right in, we're going to go into the build section, and we're going to drag in the basic components which we need to build out a synthesizer using modular blocks. And when you go into blocks, you'll see there's several different blocks or player section in the player section, and we're going to grab blocks that we need from the bento box collection. I'm going to grab a note in, and that's going to be our foundation, our starting point to build out modular synthesizers. So we're going to grab our note in, and next we're going to grab a clock. A clock is going to give us timing information, so we're going to need that to help us synchronize our synthesizer or modular rack. So it's going to give us tempo synchronization. That's the short form. It's going to give us that BPM, and it's going to give us timing. So that's important for adding rhythm to your track or really having grooves. So we're going to add two oscillators there as well. I'm going to choose two oscillators from our collection. I'm probably going to choose the basic oscillator just because they're easy to show the different permutations and different things you can do with blocks. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to name my blocks so that my oscillators, so that I know which one is which. See, as you can see, I named them oscillator 1, oscillator 2. Just going to reorganize the panel so that we have some kind of organization. I'm going to add in a filter so that we can filter our sounds, an envelope so that we can manipulate either our amplitude or our filter. And I'm going to add in a mix 4. That's not a mix 4. Mix 4 looks like that, so we can blend our sounds together. So these are the basic building blocks of our sounds. And now we're going to wire up our modules. So we're going to first wire it up by connecting our note in. Our note in is what gets signal from our keyboard. Hold on. So something seems to be playing in the back. Let's just make sure nothing's playing. Okay, so we've got nothing playing in the background, and now we can continue our build. So we're going to connect up our oscillator to the first oscillator. We're going to change it to a saw wave. The second oscillator, we're going to change that so it's bright and edgy. Gives us a bright and edgy tone. And then the next one, we're going to change to a square wave. That's going to give us more a pulsed wave or a square wave or a pulse wave, whichever one you want to call it. I'm going to slightly detune it by 5 cents. So we're going to go down, detune that by 5 cents. And then that's for thickness. So it's going to thicken our waveform and really make it nice and vibrant. So now we're going to add a sub oscillator. We're going to emulate the analog 4's sub bass power by blending in a sine wave. So we're going to use a third oscillator actually, and we're going to name that oscillator. You guessed it. We're going to name that oscillator 3. So that's going to be number 3, and we're going to make that a sine wave. The reason we're making a sine wave because we want to have a sine that's pitched down an octave. That's the reason why. So we're going to pitch it down in a whole octave. So 1 octave is 12 tones. I don't know how many semitones that is, but in the sense at least, 1 cent makes up a tone. So you can do the math from there, but it should be fairly simple if we just use tones or whole steps. So now we keep going. We're going to keep going down, and we're going to add it. We've added in our mix 4 block, and we're going to use that to blend our oscillators together. So we're going to blend in about 60% saw, 30% square wave, and 10% of our sub oscillator. So I'm going to move these out of the way, and we can blend them in first. So we're going to add in our left and right channels of each oscillator. And once we have that hooked up, we can then move this over just a little bit. Just a little bit to the left. And then we're going to actually do the next part where we're going to blend them in. So I'm going to go down to the knobs. I'm going to first reorganize my panel a little bit so that it's a little bit nicer to look at. And I'm going to blend them in. So we're going to connect up our pitch of each oscillator. And once our pitch is connected for each oscillator, we're then going to add our filter on the end, both the left and right connections. And we have some sound coming out right away. So we've got some sound coming out. Got to control your volume. You will blow your eardrums, so because the sound is unregulated, so it can go past the meters, way past the meters, and you want to make sure you protect your ears at all times when you're doing sound design work or any kind of musical work. So you want to keep your ears working for a long time. So we're going to blend in our sounds. We're just going to use these knobs here. So I said that we were going to blend in each oscillator, and we can tell which oscillator we're working on by muting the others and turning up the first one. We're going to see that's our first oscillator. So you can test for it, but we know that's our first oscillator because in order it should go in series. So our second one should technically be the one in the middle. Let's just make sure of that. Can't really hear it. The pitch is probably too low. I can hear it slightly, but you might not be able to hear it. So the only way to hear it is probably turn up the volume a little bit. So it's a really low tone. So that's our second one, and that's all of them together. I'm going to quickly just make sure, I'm going to mute this, and I'm going to quickly add in our 60% sawtooth, our 30% square, and our 10% of the sub oscillator. So 60% saw, we're going to just eyeball it. We're going to go, we know that this is 100% when you click it at the top. So we'll go about, we know that 12 would be 50%. So we'll go right there. Then we'll go, for our square, we'll do about 30%, which would be about half of that. So let's say around 24 dB. And then let's say our last one would be about 10%. So instead of 24, it'll be about minus 10 dB. So let's blend them all in, and let's turn the volume on. And we've got a tone that's coming through. We can now modulate this one. We can use a filter to cut off. We can do a low pass, so low sharp pass, and then we're going to do a cutoff frequency of about 200 hertz. So we're looking at a hertz. After we pass 1000 hertz, we know that we're going into kilohertz. So after 1000, we go to kilohertz. Everything is kilohertz. So up to 0 to 10 is 1000 kilohertz. Then we keep going all the way to 20,000 kilohertz, but this goes up to 16,000. So we're gonna go to, yeah, after 1000 it doubles. So 1000, then 2000, then 3000, and so on. Right here it just goes in hundreds up to 1000. So we're gonna go to 200. Just a little lesson on sound design. And that's about right. So 200 hertz, and we're gonna add a little resonance, about 25%. If this is 50%, we're gonna say that 25% is somewhere around here. Just dialing in a little resonance. And then we're gonna route our ADSR to our filter cutoff. So that means basically we're gonna give a little bit of filter ADSR to our cutoff. So that means we're going to route it to a mod source, which is going to be our filter cutoff. And then we're going to turn that up. And for our envelope that we have here, we're going to do 5%, 5 milliseconds on the attack, 150 milliseconds on the delay, and 60% on sustain. Can barely see it, but it's around 60. So let me just see if I can remove the wires. That's fine for now. So it's around 60. Just trust me, it's around 60. And then 80 milliseconds, sorry, for the release. It doesn't have to be exact or perfect, because every sound is going to be different. Even if you do this yourself and recreate this, your sound is going to be slightly different than my sound. So then we're going to do, sorry, that was for the amp envelope. So we're actually going to remove this and add another one in. Add in another envelope that's going to be the amp envelope. And our sound is going to dip for a second, but that's okay. So I'll turn it back on. Got some sound. I'm going to move this envelope to our amp because I set the settings for the amp. So might be a little confusing, but I'm just moving the envelope to the source that I want it to be on, because I've already set it to what I want it to be, what the parameters should be. So move it. Delete the wires and connections. You'll be doing this a lot. So we're gonna rename it to amp ADSR. Then we're gonna duplicate the ADSR, and we're gonna name this one filter ADSR. And once you rename that, we can then hook it up to our filter, and we can change the parameters for this. This one's gonna be 5% for 5 milliseconds for the attack, another 120 for the decay. It doesn't have to be exact, but we want it to be accurate and within a range of like maybe 5 milliseconds. And then sustain, we want that to be 30%. And then from the sustain, we will do a release. We'll make that release 100 milliseconds. And then we'll insert some portamento. So let's see. Let's add some portamento. That's going to be on the note in from the source where we're hitting it. So we're going to add some glide first. which is portamental. So we'll do 100 milliseconds on the glide. And we're getting something that sounds interesting. So if I turn it up, so now we're going to add some saturation and EQ. So let's remove this block. And we're going to mute our sound for a second. And then we're going to add in, let's add a sequence to this, because we haven't done the step sequence. So let's quickly add in the step sequence before we finish this out. And we're going to connect that to the gate. That's going to be connected to the gate connection. And this is going to be connected to our pitch. And then we're actually going to move our oscillators over to route from the step sequencer to from the node in to step sequencer. We're going to turn on our clock. And we're going to get some notes flowing through this thing. So it's on in. Our clock is on. Let's get some steps. We're going to add some gate control. Move our gates to this. And let's see. What could be going wrong? Let's see. That looks correct. Let's turn this down to 0. Oh, that's why. Okay, I was just muted. So I was wondering why there's no sound coming out. I'm like, I did everything right, but it doesn't look like it's connecting. So this is what our built-out modular synthesizer looks like. We're going to add some notes in here. Let's add in the C, G, A sharp, and let's add a G. Okay, let's turn that on. Okay, sounded pretty cool. So we're going to adjust one more thing. We're going to adjust our filter cutoff and resonance dynamically. So the way we're going to do that, let's do our filter cutoff and resonance. Let's see. So right now that is being modulated by the envelope. So let's adjust some filter cutoff just so you can see what that looks like. As we move it up, we get more aggressive. As we bring it back towards 200, more subdued. Let's add some glide. You can see it smoothly going to notes more. I think we'd have to use this control. Okay, also add gates our notes a little more. It's like think of it as drum chokes. It's a similar effect you get from the low to the high. But we're just over exaggerating here so you can see the results. So just to recap, we started with oscillators, shape the tone, shape the filter, shape the envelope, added some glide for movement, and finish off with effects. So I didn't add any effects to this, but I can. So let me just add one effect before we finish off our session. And I hope that you took something away from this session and you can make something of your own. I'm just going to reorganize the panel a little bit, make it a little bit better, and we are going to call it done. So I'm going to move my VCA here. Actually, that was correct with it being like that, the VCA being at the bottom, because it is at the end of the chain after the envelopes. So but the 8-step sequencer should go first, and the clock should go before that. Then our oscillators, oscillator 1, 2, and 3, and then followed by our filters. Filter for our amp and filter for our, let's move that filter beside our amp. And there we go. So that's controlling the filter, and that's controlling the amp. So now we have a fully set up panel that looks how it should look, so that we can stay organized and have control over our sound. And that's what our finished build looks like. Pretty big, but just remember, you just take it one step at a time. Feel free to take this on your own and make what you want out of it, and experiment. But now I'm just going to add an effect and play the full patch for you one more time, just showcasing the full patch. So I'm going to add some reverb, and we're going to end it off with that. So I'm going to go into the boutique, not boutique, the round section. Let's add a delay, and then that should emphasize the sound even more. So let's go. Got a little bit of arpeggiation going, taking advantage of the effect of the delay. We can take that effect away. Maybe we want to have less delay, or we can have some feedback or ping pong, making it sound a little more surround sound. Change our speed. Add a little bit of pulse width. And finally, we can actually remove this if we want to. But I'm going to keep it for now, but just on a lower setting. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments if there's any sound you'd like me to recreate next, and I'll be glad to recreate it. And let me know if you have any questions. And peace out.